This is Nimasa This Week, the authorized voice for the maritime sector. My name is Iritiola Doyle and you are welcome. Now this week, we're going to kick off the show with a brief feature on the relevance and importance of the maritime trade on global commerce and the need for proper regulation and administration of international conventions governing maritime practices.
Man has always craved the ability to explore new territories, usually for the purpose of commerce. From the very beginning, the quest to set out to sea and travel down water bodies like rivers and lakes was a compelling desire of all civilizations, hence the invention of floating vessels today we call ships. In effect, a ship is a floating vessel of trade or interaction between individuals, corporate bodies, and even nation states. As the desire to dominate other territories grew, so also the deployment of ships for purpose of warfare. In ancient times, man harnessed wind power to propel floating vessels. However, with the end of the sailing era came the advent of ships as motorized large buoyant marine vessels. Ships are usually distinguished from boats based on size and cargo or passenger capacity. The present-day large buoyant marine vessels are motor-driven and equipped with state-of-the-art navigational tools. It has become increasingly attractive for nations to deploy ships for military purposes as well as for commerce. The competition for the dominance of marine environment for economic gain among countries has introduced a sinister dimension that involves individuals and groups with manifestly ignoble intentions. Some of these groups, while appearing to be engaged in legitimate trade, have a penchant for cutting corners and sidestepping international laws and conventions governing maritime trade. While there are others who bare their fangs and engage in outright brigandage on the high seas, spreading terror and death on international waters. The resultant effect of these ignoble groups has been the attendant astronomical rise in the cost of doing legitimate maritime business for the vast majority of maritime stakeholders. Records have it that in the year 2000, vessels plying international waters were in excess of 35,000 and carried no less than 7.4 billion tons of cargo that year. It is argued in the maritime circles that the total tonnage for that year might have been higher but for the activities of sea robbers and pirates. In spite of the detrimental effect of brigandage at sea, trade between countries of the world continues to grow, thanks to the indomitable spirit of the genuine maritime practitioners who insist on not being cowed by the menace that sea robbers and pirates present. The vast majority of the bulk of international trade of goods between nations is done by sea, while also a good portion of national internal trade in goods is also done via the seas and waterways of individual nations. This being the case, all coastal nations are faced with the challenge of creating a conducive atmosphere for maritime trade to develop. In Nigeria, the onerous responsibility of administering maritime activities reside with the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Nimasa. The Shipping Development Department of Nimasa has since the inception of the agency in 2007 been at the vanguard of promoting, protecting and providing leadership for the maritime industry in Nigeria. Under the stewardship of the present Director General Mr. Patrick Ziakede Akpobolokemi, the agency has made giant strides in recent years, especially in the area of local capacity building and increasing participation of indigenes in local coastal trade. In effect, Nimasa is working all out to achieve the purpose for which the Cabotage Act was enacted. The dynamics of sea trade, be it international or local, are essentially the same. With this in mind, Nimasa has been pursuing an integrated program of empowering local stakeholders with the primary aim of providing them a place of prominence in local coastal marine trading and ultimately pave the way for indigenous ship owners to dominate Nigerian international trade. Nimasa, as the apex regulatory maritime agency in Nigeria through its Shipping Development Department, overseeing the functions of shipping development and cabotage with the laudable goal of transforming Nigeria into an international maritime power in the nearest future.
Up next is the new segment of the show, and this week we're bringing you a report brought to you by our field reporter Amanda Akban on the construction of a very vital piece of infrastructure that the agency needs in a bid to perform its duties optimally. Here's that report now.
The Nimasa Research Center at Kirikiri houses many key departments and facilities germane to its operations. In addition to hosting the Marine Environment Management Department, the Maritime Safety and Seafarer Standard Department, the center also hosts an international center for search and rescue operations. The Maritime Guard Command also has a detachment made up of men and women from practically all the armed services in Nigeria stationed there. For this reason, it could be said to be the forward operating base for Nimasa's core activities in the Lagos area, which is headquarters of Nimasa's Western Zone. The agency has had to rely on a small jetty adjacent to the research center for the numerous vessels the agency uses for its operations. However, all that is about to change now as Nimasa has commissioned the construction of a 500-ton, 6-boat capacity jetty within the precinct of the Kirikiri Research Center. Nimasa this week spoke with the site engineer in charge of the construction, Mr. Clement Ewan, and asked him how the jetty will aid Nimasa's operations when completed.
It will serve as a landing facility for the boats. As you come, so without the jetty now, you come, there is no way you can come out of the river. But with the jetty now, it will be easier for you. As you come, you land at the edge of the water there, you climb through the staircase and you come out. And if in the process ever you want to land anything inside the water, we have a ramp there, which we are still on construction. We've not done it anyway. Through that ramp, you can land any boat or anything you want to land inside the water, and you can still lift and bring out anything you want to bring out through the water. Maybe you have a load or something they brought and you want to bring out from the water, you use the jetty through the ramp to bring it out of the water.
I'm very impressed with what the President Director General of Nimasa is doing, because they seem more focused and they feel very determined. But above all, I love the program I see on television where they also try to sensitize Nigerians on what actually is going on. And this is the first time that kind of innovation has come into the sector. So I commend the efforts of the present leadership of Nimasa. And I know that because they are sensitizing the public, they will have more collaboration, and then the public will now be in a position to make more suggestions for a more effective Nimasa. So I'm very proud of what I'm seeing.
Whatever may be the case, it is of utmost importance that every accident or incident be investigated with a bid to forestalling future occurrences. At Nimasa, there exists a unit that is saddled with the responsibility of investigating every marine accident or incident. The Marine Casualty Investigation Unit at Nimasa is headed by an Assistant Director, Mrs. Rita Eguche. We got the chance to have a chat with her and asked her to give us an overview of the duties of her unit.
The ultimate goal of marine investigation or marine investigating accidents, is to advance marine safety and protection of environment. These are the key functions of the unit: investigation, and also ensure that the environment is well protected. The operational aspect of a casualty unit comes up when the following occur: where there is a marine accident or incident involving loss of life or major injury to any person on board, loss of person or persons overboard from the ship, or where there's a material damage to the ship, stranding or disabling of a ship, collision, and then fire explosion, hull failure, failure of watertight doors, ports, damage to ship or equipment, capsizing or listing. Then accidents with life-saving appliances. It could extend more than this, but in a nutshell, this is what give rises to an investigation.
We went on to press for more details on how the investigations are carried out by Nimasa operatives.
How it's conducted. Usually the surveyors in the district, we know Nimasa is very wide, it has operational offices all over the country. So when this incident happens, the surveyors within the district where it happens, who are also trained as investigators, marine investigators, resume investigation and usually do the first step, which is called the preliminary inquiry or preliminary investigation into marine accidents.
The preliminary investigation report of the surveyors, we were told by Mrs. Eguche, usually formed the basis of further action by the agency, which we were told could involve the constitution of a casualty investigation committee. We then asked her how the committee usually carries out its duties.
The functions of the Casualty Investigation Committee is to further investigate on the accidents. This committee, before I even go on, is made up of various representatives from various units or divisions of the agency. So at the end of the day, the committee looks at what the PI reports, and if there are gray areas that needs to be further investigated, we'll further go into the investigation, even if it means calling witnesses, taking interviews, conducting further on-the-spot investigation. It will go ahead and do it and then come up with a comprehensive report. This comprehensive report is supposed to be submitted to the Director General of Nimasa, who under Section 49 of the Nimasa Act, Nigeria Maritime Safety Administration Act, has the power to conduct investigation into marine accidents. He then submits to the Honorable Minister of Transport the final report of the committee, that is the Nimasa Casualty Investigation Committee. This report is just persuasive on the minister to either form a marine board or otherwise.
Mrs. Eguche went further to explain to us how the unit gets notification of marine accidents or incidences.
Yes, informations are received through different sources, which include the MRCC radio watch, the VHF channels, the automatic identification system, the AIS, the Mayday broadcast, the emergency position indicating radio beacon called the EPAB, collaboration with other government agencies as sister organizations like the MPA, Nigerian Ports Authority, the Nigerian Customs Services, and even the local people around who are privileged. And then other ships around the vicinity could also report incidences and could get us on our own radio channels. We also have emergency dedicated lines, which are also used to contact the agency if there are incidences.
Now, we couldn't help but draw comparisons between the aviation industry and the maritime industry. Everybody knows of the importance of the plane's black box. We went to ask her, does a ship have a black box?
You know, the marine sector is it's just like the aviation sector. It's also very cumbersome and complicated in undertaking investigation of accidents, because you really can't say what exactly is the problem. You just look at information here and there, you gather information, and this information invariably will let you as an investigator come to the conclusion, but you just can't assume that it is a black box. But in the maritime sector, there are laid down procedures and techniques recognized and also endorsed by IMO and the flag administration, which Nimasa is part of, to conduct casualty investigation. These procedures usually follow a step-by-step systematic approach to investigation of casualties.
We are not unmindful of the role that human error can play in any given mishap, but we were curious to know just how big a role human error plays in a marine accident.
We understand that the human element is a very big problem challenge in marine accidents, because a lot of human error occurs that could lead to accident, like overworking of seafarers, not observing the proper rest hours and things like that, and then misreading the logbooks, and then also not being able to keep a proper watch. So many things do occur that are human elements. Not even sometimes not being able to follow the proper onboard procedure in the vessel. This could also cause very major accidents.
Finally, we asked Mrs. Eguche to tell us which international conventions and protocols her unit operates under for effectiveness and legitimacy.
A lot of international conventions and multilateral conventions also affect safety. I would start with the first multilateral, which is the United Nations Law of the Sea. It's usually called UNCLOS for short, 1982. This particular convention Nigeria is party to, so also various member states of IMO are also parties to. This requires states to cause investigation into casualties involving their vessels. That means it is mandatory on states to investigate their vessels where there is an accident. Then we talk about other international conventions, like the SOLAS I had earlier mentioned, Safety of Life at Sea 7488, which also regulates safety of life at sea. We also have the IMO code. The main two instruments that are directly connected with marine casualty investigation is the IMO code for marine accident investigation, resolution A84920, adopted 27 November 1997. This was the first IMO code for marine accident investigation, and then subsequently there's an amendment. It's just the same adoption, A20 and everything, but this time this amendment had to include the human factor, because a lot of accidents were happening, and it was not just, over the years the records show that it was not just only mechanical factors, but human errors was also a very important problem in casualty incidents. So the IMO had to amend this same code to include human errors. So right now, investigation is carried out, both the mechanical aspect of investigation and also the human error aspect. So we also have the international regulation for preventing of collision at sea, usually called the COLREG. These are instruments which Nigeria are parties to.
I will leave the security situation far better than the way I met it, beyond the imagination of the listener. I will protect the marine environment far beyond the way I met it. We are not a maritime nation yet because we have not translated all the potentials in the maritime environment to practical realities for the benefit of Nigerians. We are going there now, and not one evil will stop us from achieving that mandate.
Up next is the Maritime Cargo Report, which is simply a breakdown of cargo in ships expected to berth in ports within the Lagos Pilotage District this week. As always, the Maritime Cargo Report is brought to you courtesy of the Shipping Development Department of Nimasa.
There is only one motor vessel awaiting berth at the Lagos Pilotage District this week, and it is carrying bulk wheat. On the other hand, there are 12 motor tanker vessels awaiting berth at the Lagos Pilotage District this week. Out of that number, 4 are laden with PMS or petrol. 1 is laden with AGO or diesel. 4 vessels are with DPK or kerosene. 1 is laden with Jet A1 or aviation fuel, while the remaining 2 are laden with crude palm oil.
This week, we have 2 very interesting comments that we'd like to share with you. Andrew YJ wrote in from Port Harcourt, and he says, I have had cause to read some very critical comments about the leadership of Nimasa in the press. However, from all indications, it is clear that such criticisms are unfounded. From what I see on this program, it is obvious that the management of Nimasa is on the right track, especially with the vigor they have been pursuing the Nigerian Seafarers Development Program. In my opinion, it is only when we have reached a critical mass in the training of qualified seafarers that the Cabotage Act will find full expression. I urge the Dynamic Director General of Nimasa, Ziakede Patrick Akpobulukemi, to ignore the naysayers and continue with his visionary leadership of the maritime sector. Jide Razak Daudu of Lekki in Lagos also wrote in, and he says, I have watched this program on a couple of occasions and I must commend the producers for a job well done. It was on this program that I got to know of the Maritime Guard Command that has been fighting against the scourge of piracy and oil theft within the Lagos anchorage. I, however, would advise that the Maritime Guard operations be extended to the other anchorages to secure them against pirates and oil thieves. I was also pleasantly surprised to see that Nigeria is taking its big brother role seriously by helping Benin Republic secure her maritime borders. It is clear to me that the present leadership at Nimasa is focused and purpose-driven. I hope the federal government will extend the necessary support for Nimasa to continue to do a good job and even improve in its services to the maritime sector. Now that is our show for this week. We hope we kept you educated and informed. Now please don't forget, Nimasa This Week is an interactive show. We want to hear your thoughts, your questions, even your criticisms. All you need to do is to send us an email at the address currently showing on your screen. Now I'm going to be here next week, same time, same station. Until then, I'm wishing you smooth sailing and bon voyage.